Welcome to the Hearts Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the Hearts Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today, listeners, I've got a lovely lady. Her name is Nour Al Tamimi, and she is a confidence coach. Welcome, Nour.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Lyn. I'm very excited to be here today.
And whereabouts in the world are you from, Nour?
So I'm from Saudi Arabia, and I'm currently, because of COVID, between Dubai and London, but normally in the UK.
Excellent. Okay, so we're going to be talking about in this particular podcast episode, the 3 tips to improving our relationships. But before we get into that, what I'd first of all like to do is ask Nour a little bit about herself and what's led her to be doing what she's doing today.
Okay, great. So basically, I actually had Trainer's brand. It was called the New Project. And I had moved the brand from Dubai to the UK in end of 2019. And within a month and a half, COVID began. So it forced me to really reassess my values and what I wanted to contribute to the world. And it made me question consumerism and consumer culture. And I realized that I no longer wanted to be part of catering to a want, but rather than a need. So I wanted to cater to people's needs. And the pandemic just made me self-reflect on what my values are and what I want to contribute to make a direct positive difference to people's lives and therefore to the world.
Wow.
So
excellent. Very, very inspiring. So going on to then talking about the 3 tips to improving our relationships, you pre-off air wanted to talk about the first one being about creating some clear communication. So would you share with the audience, some tips around how they can create some clear communication with their other half?
Yes. So I feel like a lot of relationships, sometimes the other person doesn't feel like they're being heard, or they feel like, what they're saying doesn't come across to the other person. So when I say clear communication, that also includes listening. And being able to really listen to your partner and their needs in a healthy way without interrupting, without projecting, is actually really important to strengthen the relationship, because it will allow the other person to feel heard, and just creating this intimate space where you are listening. That's actually a very healthy form of communication. Another clear way of communicating is many times in relationships, people bottle things up, and I don't know why that happens, but it's important to really not let things linger, and not hold a grudge, or not let things pile up inside. So I think it's very healthy to also sleep with a clear conscience, with a clear heart, and with a clear soul, and always make sure that you communicate to that person what your feelings are, whether they've hurt you, whether you feel, you've been wronged somehow. Just having that clear communication is very important.
That's a really good point. And one thing I'd add to that is that I think sometimes we can be fearful of not wanting to rock the boat. And in actual fact, that just creates more problems down the line, because like you say, it just builds up resentment in the end until it becomes, at some point, the straw that breaks the camel's back, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's why it's really important to communicate. And many times in relationships, from my personal experience, and people that I know in my inner circle, a lot of the times they are afraid to communicate with their partner. And I wonder, where this fear has come from all of a sudden, with someone that they live with, that they see every day. It shouldn't be something intimidating. And it's important to recognize that we make things much scarier in our minds. And the more we avoid a confrontation or a conversation, the bigger and scarier it gets.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that, because quite often I think, like you said, it's actually bigger in our own heads than what actually the reality might be. And also, what I found is, if I do communicate, even if it's something that I think is maybe going to rock the boat, the spouse concerned has often received that really well, and they may not particularly like it, in some instances, but at the end of the day, you're communicating what you find acceptable and what isn't or is acceptable, and they will ultimately respect that, even if their initial reaction might be a bit defensive.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And one more thing I wanted to add about clear communication is speaking in a calm tone and in a calm voice, because I'm sure many people can relate to when we were young and kids and our mothers or fathers yelled at us. A lot of the times it doesn't, it doesn't have the impact that it does. It either creates more drama, or it creates, us, internalizing everything and being more afraid. So just remember to speak calmly and to communicate in a very calm tone, so the other person is able to really listen to and absorb what you're trying to tell them.
Exactly. And I think that creates then a safe space for men to share, their mistakes or errors, because if they feel that by sharing, for example, say they've had an accident in the car, and then their normal expectation, if they confess that to you, would be to hear you go into a real drama over it and get really emotional. It then prevents him from being able to share things like that in the future, doesn't it? Because he doesn't want to be on the end of that drama or emotional response, does he?
Yeah, exactly. So many times, if you're infuriated or frustrated and you start yelling, the other person will just shut out. They're not going to absorb anything you tell them. That's why speaking in a calm tone is an important factor in clear communication.
Exactly, because what I tend to hear from a lot of my clients is that they say, why do men lie, or try and cover up the things that they've done. Well, the reason being is that you've taught them to be like that because of the way you've reacted to when they've shared something previously, when they've made a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if you're familiar with the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins, but she wrote a book a while back that I read, and I found it so helpful in everything. And this could be applied to that. So it's like when something is happening and, you're angry or upset, just, count from 5 to 1 backwards. So it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you just inhale and exhale and try to compose yourself, and then speak in a calm manner. It's not as easy as it sounds, but it's a good way of handling yourself when you're in that state, like reminding yourself to, okay, I want to speak calmly. I know that this is the only way I'll be heard.
And it is the only way you're going to be heard, because if you do react rather than responding with a soft voice, like you say, it's not going to solve anything, and it's just going to make our partner, if anything, not want to communicate any misdemeanors or mistakes they've made in the future.
Yes,
So
yes.
You just create, what you don't want in the end, don't you?
Yes, 100%. And that's why also listening is one of the most powerful tools of communication. It's not just, wanting to be heard by your partner, but making space for them being heard as well.
And when you say listening, it isn't just about, listening whilst you're drumming your fingers when waiting to jump in with your opposite point of view. It is listening respectfully, isn't it? And really being fully present.
Exactly. Being present and creating that safe space.
Excellent. So any other information you want to share about being clear around communication?
I think I've shared the most important three parts, like being able to listen, being able to talk in a calm tone and voice where they can listen to you, and that so that you're heard, and not letting things fester. So making sure that you communicate on the daily, even if it's to do with something trivial, so that it doesn't build up inside.
Excellent. So step 2 then, or the tip number 2 that you mentioned as part of the 3 tips is around gratitude. What can you share with our audience around gratitude?
So a lot of some of from my personal experience and some of the clients I've had, a lot of the times people have issues with their partners, in the sense that their partners or them themselves always focus on the other person's flaws. It's always like, okay, like they did this wrong and they did that wrong, and it's always about critiquing and not seeing the things that are going right. And a simple step of gratitude, even with yourself, like just writing a gratitude list for yourself, makes a huge difference to your life. I mean, there have been so many studies surrounding gratitude and how it makes people happier and how it dramatically improves the quality of a person's life. So just being able to tell your partner at the end of the day, 3 things that you're grateful for that they did throughout the day, and them telling you why they're grateful for you and for 3 things that you did that day. I think this is a really simple yet profoundly powerful exercise, because it allows the other person to feel important, to feel like that their partner isn't just focusing on their flaws, that they're seeing them, that they're being seen, not just heard, but seen.
And isn't that so important? And sometimes as well, we can be, I suppose, reluctant to take compliments as well. It also teaches us to be able to receive as well as give, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. So that's one of the reasons why my niche is in confidence. It's helping people to receive compliments, like you just mentioned. It's funny. So a simple exercise for that could be like, if just imagine when a compliment as a present, when someone gives you a present, you're not going to say like, oh no, I don't want that, you're going to be so happy and so excited and receive it with open arms. So just simply looking at, compliments as presents really allows yourself to be more open to receive.
Yeah, I think it is so important, because we forget, especially women, I feel, we were so used to giving and nurturing and depleting ourselves that we forget that, we deserve to receive as well, and allow the space and give people the gift of giving, rather than batting it back as well. Receive the compliment without feeling the need to, say, oh, it's nothing, or rather, then throw a compliment back at the other person because you feel you need to balance it out. No, just enjoy it. Just say thank you. I really appreciate you saying that.
Yes, exactly. And it's amazing how, just expressing gratitude or hearing your partner expressing gratitude for you, it's amazing how it really strengthens your bond and your relationship. And actually what starts to happen is that every day you start to notice more things that your partner is doing, and subsequently you stop focusing on their flaws, but really you start to recognize that there's no perfect person. I mean, you're not perfect, your partner is not perfect, we're all evolving together. So just recognizing the things that the other person does for you is so integral.
Absolutely, 100% agree. And I think it's a great practice and a habit to get into, and it does become a habit eventually, doesn't it? It might feel a bit challenging to start with and a bit maybe even false or fake, saying, oh, let's sit down and tell each other what we appreciate about each other. But eventually it becomes a normal part and routine of your day, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. So in my personal experience, it wasn't easy convincing my partner to tell me what they're grateful for, but I would force them every day. And I would tell them and I'd say, this is your turn to tell me. And eventually now, I don't have to tell him. It just happens naturally.
Exactly. And it's a lovely way to give and receive with our spouse. I've actually got that as a practice and a routine within my own relationship. So I understand, the immense benefits it can have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I mean, just want to highlight that I know this podcast is about relationships and love, but just highlighting that the relationship with yourself is so important. And, being grateful for you as well. And what you do, recognizing that so that you are able to then hold, a bigger space for your partner.
Absolutely. And for those singles out there, it's a good routine to get into and acknowledge what you're grateful for every day, isn't it? Regardless of whether you're in a relationship or not.
Yes, exactly. So I recommend having a gratitude journal. I have one myself, and I actually started this practice around a year and a half ago. So right when the pandemic began, and I started with writing 3 things down, and right now it's up to 10 things a day. So every night before I sleep, I just write 10 things. Sometimes I write more than 10, if a lot of things happen that day, but it's never less than 10. It evolved from 3 to 5 to 10.
Yeah. And even if you just start with one, it's a start, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Because, again, the more you do it, the easier it becomes and the more you find to be grateful for.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And another way you can communicate that with your partner is, maybe writing gratitude post-its, leaving it for them, in their work office or somewhere where they can find it. Sometimes doing that extra effort comes a long way.
Yeah, I've even, done something similar where I've put a post-it in his pocket for him to find later, and as a nice surprise. And it's a way to be a bit flirtatious as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Or taking their cash and putting a nice note instead.
Is that something you've done then, Nour?
No, but I was just trying to be creative right now. Maybe I'll do it in the future.
So any other tips you want to share around gratitude and pass on to the audience before?
Just before, sharing gratitude with your partner, just make sure that you do it with yourself as a basis, so write 3 things you're grateful for in your life, and then you can communicate what your partner did that you're grateful for. So it's important, I feel, to make sure that you put yourself first, because if we don't take care of ourselves, then we won't be able to take care of others or serve others.
Excellent. Love that. Okay, so the third big tip then that you wanted to share around improving our relationship is around values. So what have you got to say around that subject?
So the reason why I chose values is because many relationships that sadly don't work out, or marriages that don't work out, are when the other person, states that their partner has changed. And what many people fail to recognize is that they've actually changed themselves as well in the process. We're human beings that are constantly evolving. We're constantly learning. Our passions are changing. So being able to have similar values to begin with is really important with, cementing your bond. But even if your values change along the way, it's important to communicate that with your partner so that they can understand, why you do the things you do, or why you're acting the way you're acting. Because many times, some things that bother you, your partner won't understand, but it's because it crosses your value, you know? So just being able to recognize what your values are, what your partner's values are, and seeing where your commonalities are and where your differences are so important in strengthening that bond so that you can understand each other. So for example, let's say your partner values, cooking, something simple like cooking, and they really value you making them dinner or lunch on, if they're working from home, like during COVID. Recognize, and let's say you're a terrible cook, right? Recognizing that, your partner, this is one of their values, and making that extra effort, even if you have, other priorities, just taking that time to cater to your partner's values will really strengthen your relationship, and vice versa. I mean, I could have like many examples of values, but especially to begin with, especially because I'm from the Middle East, a lot of the times people, society and family, they recommend, you marry someone from the same culture, from the same religion, because it's similar values. And when people, I'm not with an Arab nor a Muslim, by the way. So I've went against the status quo in that sense, but it just made me realize that, you can work around having different set of values. And when you inform your partner about, your culture and things that are important for you, they can learn from that, and they can be inspired by that. And I think it's actually beautiful to come together from different cultures and different values and learn from one another.
Okay, so just for the benefit of the audience that may not really understand what values are, could you give some typical examples of the things that might be values that you can share with the audience so they understand what that term actually means?
Mm-hmm. So your values are the things that you believe are important in the way you live and work. So they should like typically determine your priorities, and deep down, they're what drive you. So for example, if you go online and you can do like a value, you can just Google like how to figure out what my values are. There are a list of different words. And typically what I do with my clients is that I have my own list of values that I send them, and I tell them to choose, the top 10 that really resonate with them. So for example, if it is like trust, loyalty, service, knowledge, spirituality, like there are so many different words. And so I have them pick the top 10, and out of those top 10, I make them reduce it to 3. And those are the things that we focus on, and for them to recognize what areas in their life fall under those types of umbrella. A lot of clients find it difficult to break it down to 3, but I feel like having 3 and 5 values are good to start with. And it's a fun exercise to do with your partner as well, just asking them, out of these words, like, what do you think resonates most with your work ethic, with your life, with what's important for you? Does that answer your question?
It does. And I think it is about, asking what's important for you to feel or experience, isn't it, in your life on a regular basis actually sums up what values are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what do you do if you're in a situation where you feel like, I suppose that your values are becoming a bit misaligned with your partner? What would you suggest in that situation?
So that's when we go back to point A, communication, and and really, tell. And it's funny because values do change. I mean, when you're in college or in high school, you have completely different values. You care about, let's say, popularity. You care about, different things. And then, even throughout your life, your career changes, just like what I went through during the pandemic. I mean, my values changed. just when I realized, I no longer wanted to be part of this consumer world. It doesn't make me feel like I'm making a positive difference. It doesn't nourish my soul. So it's funny, our values do change. And it changes depending on our environment. It changes depending, on the person we're with even. But it's important to always be confident in who you are, in the sense that, and I don't want to mistake confidence with stubbornness. So like, when I say confident in a relationship, it means like you have a strong sense of self and sense of identity and your values. And that makes for a healthy relationship, because it makes sure that the partner or the person that you're with doesn't change who you are, or doesn't have that power to make you feel insecure in any way, because you are sure of, you have a strong sense of self, you have a strong self-esteem, you have strong self-confidence. So it's important to be sure of who you are. And but of course, when even in dating or in relationships, what attracts partners to each other and what eventually leads to marriage is actually the commonality of values. If they both value children, and they both value family, and a lot of the times they will have those commonalities. And of course, you're going back to your question, which is what happens when your values change. Going back to communication, like being able to communicate with your partner, like, I'm going through this right now, and I feel like this is what I feel is important to me at this moment. And I want to have a career change, or I want to focus more on, let's say suddenly you became very spiritual and you wanted to become a yoga instructor, just communicating that with your partner. Like, I think it's important for me to examine this field better, and I hope you're there to support me in this, even if your partner, doesn't understand. But just that communication, so that they're there to understand what's important for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, it is about going back to the communication part of the exercise of, what are these things that help us improve our relationships. And it's very, very important, if you feel like your values are changing, that you keep each other informed about how you feel about things. In terms of what's now important to you compared to what was important to you when you first met, for example.
Exactly. So that's why values are important.
And talk a little bit about the difference between communicating from a space of, like you say, confidence versus stubbornness.
So I wanted to highlight that, because a lot of the times people, want to work on their self-confidence. And once they feel they're at a level where they're sure of themselves, and, they're sure of their beliefs, and they're sure and confident with their decisions, sometimes if their partner is, or someone in their vicinity, a friend, doesn't matter who, like, says something that they don't agree with, suddenly they will think that, no, this is who I am, this is what I believe in, these are my values, and I'm not gonna change. Like, that's why I love to highlight that. Don't mistaken confidence with stubbornness, because once you get to that stage, it's important to recognize that we are constantly evolving, and we are not perfect beings, and just because in that certain moment you believe in a certain thing strongly, it doesn't mean that you are right all the time. People, this is why belief systems are so powerful, because they can convince us that or make us see things only the way we want to see them. So it's important to be able to have an open perspective. And this is important because you should be able to see your partner's point of view and your partner's perspective, and not just focus on your values and on your perspective and how things should be your way. It should be, you should be able to merge the two together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had somebody that I know that and this is going back some years, he's changed his view completely around what he said at that moment in time. But I quite have a laugh with him about it now around, you know, he was quick-tempered, and I challenged him on it and said, well, you know, where does that come from? He says, well, I'm a volatile volcano. I've always been a volatile volcano, and you know, that's what I'll always be. Well, you know, how is that serving you then? How's that working for you?
Yeah, it's funny. It's also like I actually have a friend who doesn't like cucumbers, and from a very young age, and she's convinced that she hates cucumbers. And we went to a Greek restaurant and they served tzatziki, which has cucumbers in it, and she loved it and she ordered more. And at the end of the dinner, I was like, do you know that there are cucumbers in there? And she was like in shock and she couldn't believe it. And now she eats cucumbers. So that's just another example of really how we convince ourselves of certain things, you know, that it's just funny, the power of the mind.
Yeah, but we don't know what we don't know, do we? Until we do know.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we can do better. Okay, so thank you so much for sharing all those tips around how we can improve our relationship. Number 1 around clear communication, and number 2 around gratitude, and number 3 around values. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up the episode then, Nour?
First of all, thank you for having me, Lyn, and I hope what I shared will help, you know, people and their relationships. Just wanted to add to remember to be confident in who you are and what your values are, but also recognize what's important for your partner and what their values are, so that you can work together.
Excellent, love that. So what is the best way that our audience members can connect with you then, Nour? What's the best form of contact that you can share with them?
So they can follow me on Instagram at The New Life. So it's THENOU Life.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nour. That's been really, really helpful, and I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Thank you so much, Lyn, and thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it as well. Thank you.
So it just leaves me to say that true love starts with opening our hearts, and until next time, goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group Two Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.